take over from compliance officer.
From Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. May I request that they all stand up, please? Yes, we have from Metropole Uganda, Executive Director there. So today my presentation is based on relationships we've had with the lenders in the market, and more specifically a recent assignment that we got courtesy of Profit. And Ronald and John Kabuda here appointed Metropole as a TSP, as technical service provider, gathering information around the challenges faced by smallholder farmers with respect to access to credit. When Jared gave me options for topics for this conference, I requested him that allow us to talk about solutions for agriculture, because we find that a lot of our partner institutions have very low penetration in that sector, and yet it's a very important sector in our economy. So today I wish to thank Jared for accepting to allow me to talk or to make a presentation on possible alternative data that we can use to unlock access to credit for the biggest part of our society. Over 80% of our people are involved in agricultural activities. So without unlocking credit to that sector, our impact is still minimal. So I have made a comment there to say generating impact and creating a green world, one decision at a time. Yeah, so statistics from Central Bank, 2% of the banking industry lending is to agriculture. I've just added this red line from Ronald Indangala's presentation today. In the portfolio he pointed out that only 1.64% of the loans he has guaranteed are loans to the agri sector. This is a real serious gap, given the size, the potential, and the significance of this sector for food security, for nutrition, for livelihoods, for employment. Many farmers need money or need financing, need support to purchase the necessary livestock, crops, other inputs, and even after they have gone into the production, they need to harvest, process, and get that produce to get to the market. Sometimes failure to get funding can actually lead to losses at that point. The challenges that lenders have reported is that they are unable to assess because there are no records. There is instability in terms of production. So it's very hard to estimate yields. And then of course there is a question of the market. Opportunity for the farmer to eventually sell the produce at the pricing. And thirdly is how to reach the farmer. So in the CRB data, most of the agri-lending are to the big farms who have head offices, who have very sophisticated teams, and so you think about them separately from smallholder farmers. So how do you reach the smallholder farmer in the rural community? So what is the solution that the bank needs? So my presentation today will focus on solutions for credit departments to use to assess credit for farmers that are not in places where it is not efficient to take a car and drive and go and assess the farm. Secondly, is most rural agriculture output is for subsistence. This is a vicious cycle. The reason it's for subsistence is because it's hard for that farm to get support to mechanize, to get support in terms of financing, for them to then find ways of contacting a contract partner for them to sell to them, etc. Lastly is a cultural issue, and I will talk about it also from my background. I come from a family that is in agri. I am a rural person, so I'm a stranger in the city. And part of what I've been doing over the years is maize farming. But in the last 2 or 3 years, there is a frenzy for avocado farming in Uasin Gishu. I come from Uasin Gishu, which is a county in Western Kenya. We are usually called the bread basket. For the last 3 years, this crop called avocado has become a fad. It is the thing that everybody is growing. Now, Kenya is number 6 globally in production of avocado because of that effort for people to move out of the cultural practice around planting traditional crops. And it is possibly because of some entry of partners who are supporting the avocado value chain. So it's important that we break the cultural issues around Africa. So the alternative data source I wish to bring to your attention is agroclimatic data. This is data related to, number 1, climate conditions, soil and the terrain, the topographic conditions, the yield potential for the different varieties of crops, the yield potential for the different varieties of livestock. So when you combine all this data, are you able then to make a decision on the yield potential of that crop, of that livestock, and therefore determine whether to lend or not to lend based on data. So in terms of the climate conditions, this is looking at historical data, weather patterns, etc. And the data is gotten from IPCC, NASA, and NOAA. These are satellite and collected data that are then pushed into an engine to calculate and to project possible weather elements. This is temperature, precipitation, wind, and extreme weather conditions. The next set of data is on soil. So the advancement in imaging and the processing of elements using their image properties has really advanced. So it's possible for satellite to generate characteristics of soil. So soil suitability, slope, internal drainage, apparent fertility based on the characteristics of that soil. The third set of data is on crops. So all the crop varieties data is available. That is input into a database and used to compute. Same thing to livestock. So from an assessment point of view in agri-lending, so already as bureaus, we are able to give you assessment of the character of the borrower. This is on the left side. So when you combine that data now with the data you get from the agroclimatic analysis, from the data we are talking about, then you're able to then properly assess the risk. And what do you assess? So you assess the risk based on this agroclimatic, the specific territory, so the specific land that the farmer wants to borrow to do the activity in, the specific activity, they want to do maize farming, or they want to keep beef cattle, etc. And then some attributes about the farmer. So is the farmer a knowledge farmer? Has he been in this practice? Does he understand the agronomics around the activity they want to do? And then the period. So when do they plan to plant? What are the conditions around that time? From that analysis, we get a risk score that ranges from 0 to 10, which you then input into your credit assessment. The other product that we can get from that is a climate change mitigation tool, the CO2 meter. So you're able to then focus on estimating the CO2 output so that we can all help in controlling effects of climate change. There is an option for you to find alternative crops for that condition, for that space, for that farmer, for that area. Thirdly is harvest projector. So this is important in determining whether the activity that you're financing is able to pay back. So these are as part of the output of the assessment, you will get four products: the scope, CO2 estimator, climate smart crop identifier, and harvest projector. Allow me now to quickly do a show of what this really is. So for those who have engaged with Metropole, you know that we have a platform which we use to access our credit reports. Because we got CBK approval, we have embedded this climatic platform into the Metropole CIB access platform, which we're calling MAP. This is a platform that we've been using for many years, so most of our credit officers are aware. So it's a plug and play. When you click on this, it takes you to Agroclimatica. Just run through. In the Agroclimatica, you pull a score. You can choose whether a crop or a livestock. So when you choose a crop, you then input the data. I don't want to go through all the steps of putting the data because I have limited time. After you put the data, you will eventually, so you then get the CO2 meter reader and the score. So this score is talking about between 0 and 10. It gives you climate risk assessment. It says the climate risk is medium. It gives you soil risk. It gives you crop risk. It gives you harvest predictor. And then for each of the areas, it gives you details. So for instance, on the climate, the key item there is temperature. So the expected temperature in the period is within the range for the product, for the crop that is being planted valley. The relative humidity, you see the crop requirement versus the limit for this particular crop. Rainfall, although the rainfall needs for the crop is sometimes higher than what is required. Eventually, it gives the recommended crop. Let me see. Takes me back. Sorry. So finally, you can download the actual report. Part of the data that you fill here. Let me just pick randomly. Sorry to waste a lot of time. So you will pick the coordinates or just pick a particular spot on the map. And part of the things you will input is a credit policy. This is what I wanted to pick up. You will put applicable, it's not sure properly there, applicable policy. So as part of onboarding you into the Agroclimatic platform, you will set the credit policy that is applicable for different varieties of crops, for different livestock types, to say if it is this kind of yield, estimated yield, or this kind of risk profile, please do not lend. So that the credit officer in the office can then assess and give their comments. And this report can be very important in making that decision. You can download the report and make that decision. Yeah, so who is the partner? So we partnered to access this alternative data from a company called Inman, which is based in Denmark. And they're currently serving 9 countries. They have partnerships with several institutions, and we are their African partner, trying to enable access to agri-lending in the countries that we operate in. In Kenya, we have information for all the 47 counties, and we've taken the product through Central Bank. They gave us approval based on data that was undertaken on the product, on the technology and on the products that they are offering. So in terms of the final rollout of the product, we started rolling out the product. I know most of you participated in our online webinars during COVID time and before COVID, and we're happy that some of you have signed up. And you can see it is part of our products for credit assessment for purposes of your prudential reporting or provisioning. We are targeting to have all the lenders. Metropole has about 2,516 partners in the lending space. We have 80% of the market share in this market. And we also have integrated this product to our Cristobal. Cristobal is the Metropole's B2C platform. I don't know whether we have one of the banners outside is describes the Metropole platform. So this is enabling farmers today to use agroclimatica in their own farms to assess for themselves, even without going to the lender, to assess whether a particular crop or livestock is viable in their own farm. So with those few remarks, thank you very much.
And I'm also a data scientist. But I'll give you only one statistic, only one for you to contemplate. And then I'll give a statement that speaks to all the presentations that you had, with the climax of from Metropole, because we've been working with Metropole for about 10 years now. And these are statistics. Before PFM Act, before a lot of data collaboration and information sharing came, AFC used to have an underperforming portfolio, NPLs, of 56%. As at December 2022, the NPLs are 18%, from 56 to 18. The industry average, as per CBK statistics, is 14%.
Lending to agriculture, outreach to smallholder farmers have been very weak for a long time. It's still very weak. The numbers you presented attest to that. If we wanted to double or triple funds going to the smallholder segment of agriculture, what kind of risks and risk solutioning would we be thinking about? And what kind of partnership between public sector, private sector would we need to investigate? Because at the end of the day, we are looking at private sector funds flowing to the agricultural sector. Okay.
Thank you, John. The risks that are predominantly scaring away financial institutions is really the main one is lack of data, lack of ways of assessing, first of all, the creditworthiness, and then of the smallholder farmer, because most of them are not in the credit ecosystem. First of all, the yield performance of the venture, and secondly, the market and associated risks. Now, solutions for that, I think the digital lenders and digital products in the bank space have really covered a lot of room, and we give a lot of credit to M-Pesa and the NCBA, KCBs, and all the big players who have managed to really push financial inclusion that has enabled this rural farmer who has never come close to a bank branch to access and get some sort of like credit assessment and get a facility. Now, the challenge that we now have to deal with is this question of the activity that they are engaging in. Are we able to then assess it to determine the risk? Second thing is, so at least we have already, I think, the partnership with the ministry, the AFC, and the universities that are working with us, we're working with the regional university, have enabled us cover a lot of area in terms of getting the data required to be able to assess the productivity, production capacity, or the yield capacity of a certain farming activity given the right conditions. The challenge that we have to work on is on the market side. Guaranteeing market for the produce, especially around dealing with the issues of glut, overproduction during rainy season or when the produce is high and then underproduction. It is so issues around solving the question of irrigation and reliance on rain-fed agriculture needs to be top of the list. The second item is on, I think, extension work. terms of partnership to support farmers in terms of building capacity for them to do the right husbandry, the right activities when they are involved in the business of agriculture. So agribusiness, training and capacity building.
Yes, thank you, Gideon. I could, before I go to the next question, I could ask Jackson to also comment along the same lines. Thank you.
Yeah, without the risk of repeating what he has said, I will just list the risks and how we are handling them at Agricultural Finance Corporation. The first risk is market risk, as mentioned about it. The second one is production risk. The third one is the financial sector, financial risks, currency and all that. Then we have legal risks. Sometimes when they produce and it's a challenge. And finally, we have social and environmental risks. How do we deal with this at AFC? How do we de-risk this in agriculture? We decompose the problem into two. You have risks and uncertainties. We try to remove the level of uncertainty as much as possible by utilizing data so that we remain the probability of success or failure. And that has been made possible by our partnership with the credit reference bureaus, the CIS, in fact, we first started the CIS, integration of information, working with the other development partners. So that way we reduce the element of uncertainty to remain with the probability now which we are able to manage through initiatives like insurance, credit risk, guarantee schemes. We are working with Mr. Nyangala. We also have small guarantee schemes within our frameworks. There's one we worked with Mr. Kabuda and our profit program. We are now working up with a guarantee for youth, enabling youth. So that is our approach to de-risking. Thank you.
A follow-up question. When you look at smallholder farming, agriculture and smallholder farming, one aspect that makes smallholder farmers unattractive to the banks is the small deal sizes, their size and the cost per deal. I have seen in your presentation given reference to technology. In terms of delivery and solution, how would we be able to attract the same private sector capital to these smallholder farmers without making, while still maintaining the credit at affordable rates to the smallholder farmer? Thank you.
There are several levels of innovation. The first innovation is within the origination and the assessment and disbursement. Are we at the level currently where a smallholder farmer can originate a request through a digital platform and that request be assessed in a digital platform and the payments remitted or whatever facility disbursed in a digital platform? I think the answer is partly yes, and that is what needs to be scaled up for that size of the lending of financial service to these smallholder farmers to happen. The second level of innovation is within the value chains. We have to find a way of connecting farmers to bankers, creating groups around activities in different industries and value chains. And we support that anchor with the right ticket of finance. So a processor who then can uptake all the produce. So I think that is an area that requires innovation, because from a credit risk assessment, the assessment is not just on that anchor alone, but even upstream and downstream. So I think there is required innovation of financial products, targeting the anchors at whatever level, either at the input side or at the produce side, the ones uptaking the products. Thirdly is on regulation. I think the central bankers here and general regulators should set certain thresholds. I want to challenge CBK and the Bank of Uganda and National Bank of Rwanda here, because of the market separation. Can you set a threshold of 10% of portfolios of lenders to go to Africa? How would that look like? If we are able to push, because eventually, if we improve productivity of the sector that employs 80% of the market, we will transform this economy. Because the levels of productivity across, these are people who, when you increase their household income, then they will buy more produce, so the trade sector will respond, they will go on holiday. All this will have ripple effects. So is it possible, from a supervisory point of view, to be innovative and figure out how to incentivize lenders, financial institutions, people doing insurance, and can governments, for instance, provide some tax incentives to support lending to agriculture? I think those are the different myriads of innovations we have to do, in addition to, of course, social cultural change, because a lot of resistance to modern best practice, modern crops, is because family has legacy issues. A lot of farmers hand down their farming practices to their children and their grandchildren. So it becomes a resistance from the grandfather or from the father to say, you can't switch from maize farming to avocado farming. In fact, let me give a joke for those who come from Rift Valley. When there was a push to shift to avocado farming, some politicians were making a joke that our initiates do not eat avocados. You know, during Christmas, we send young boys for initiation, right? And in that process, it's a big cultural activity. There's a lot of feeding. And so we're saying, you want our kids to starve, because now they can't be eating avocados. They need to eat ugali. So I think those cultural practices, again, pose a resistance. And so we need a lot of work in terms of education, awareness, and it's an innovative area for social behavioral scientists.
Damned outside there, but how do we bring these actors together? I think CIS, you have your work cut out, how to bring us together and share information, and that will improve even our footprint on ESG. So that we're able to demonstrate that this customer does not use pesticides. They do organic farming. You know, that kind of behavior data will be able to help us improve our footprint on climate change adaptation. Thank you.
Well, for the very presentations. So, in terms of paraphrasing that question, we find that there are two levels of agriculture when you can think about it. There is the primary agriculture, and then there is the value-added agriculture. So what we tend to see in the Kenyan space is that the second level is bankable, but the first level presents a lot of challenges. Why? Because the first level is probably smallholder farmers, very fragmented and so on. So the question is, are there innovative ways that we can think about first level farming such that when we get bankable opportunities? Would aggregation, be it in form of circles, be it in form of societies and so on, be the way to go? Secondly, what is the role of insurance in mitigating some of these risks? My third question would be to the CEO of Metropole. The model, the agri-climatic model you've shown us, has it been successfully implemented in a banking environment in terms of supporting banking and banking credit risk advancement anywhere in the world, including in was it Netherlands, you said? Finally, is there space, because agriculture tends to be seasonal, and the way banking credit operates, it's very monthly or periodic in that way. What are some of the innovations, in your opinion, can be put in place to support seasonal farming cycles? Thank you.
Yes. On the question of data possibly misleading us, I agree it's possible that the data, that 1.64% is an understatement, because some aspects of agri-lending are not captured in the DST, in the data submission table. So we need to do some work there. But you posed some practical questions about a transporter. I think the general convention, and it's within the SIC code, I think there's a threshold of 25% of the activities. You use the amount of the percentage of contribution onto revenue of the activities to be able to push that company or enterprise to a particular sector. So a lot of the transporters, let's think about a border, the motorbike transporter, there's a very high chance that they probably are doing transportation of people 90% of the times, and only in the morning they transport tomatoes. So in that case, then they will probably sit in logistics side and not necessarily now. Same thing to truck owner who does maybe produce, but also does other kinds of hardware transportation, etc. So I think there is work there, yes. But for me, the message is clear. And even these questions around productivity of the smallholder farmer, the message is clear. Not enough financing is going there. The reason smallholder farmers do not have high productivity is because of capacity issues. And that capacity is linked to their ability to be funded, for them to buy an equipment, for them to buy seeds, if it is a poultry farm, for them to optimize their space by having more chicken or whatever, the chicks in the farm. So it's an issue of access to financing, to funding. Number two, in terms of is smallholder farming profitable? I think from a market forces point of view and balance of power, smallholder farmers in this country have been meant to believe that they do not have bargaining power. So they sell their produce at throwaway price. In fact, the middlemen and even the end consumer, all the brokers, they take all the money. So they actually are bleeding the smallholder farmer. But eventually, just like the dinosaurs, eventually we hurt ourselves when we are oppressing and not rewarding the guy who spends most of the time producing. So the smallholder farmer who does a maize or sukuma wiki, who eventually cannot make money. The next season, some of them are out of business or are unable to produce the right quality of produce because we undercut them. So I think the solution there is, it's a policy level, I think, but also market level, to say that we need to empower, either through these marketing circles, etc., for them to have bargaining power in the market space, so that it's not only the buyer power that is killing the seller of the producer. You asked on, I think I like the question from Christos Mahapsa, on the question that a lot of lenders are focusing on the secondary agricultural activities. Value addition enterprises within the value chain, and other activities that are not really on the primary level of production. I think we need to honestly find a way of changing that model, because one is independent of the other. So it's not sustainable to do secondary when primary is not supported. Your last question is this agricultural in use? Even in Kenya it is in use. I don't know whether we have someone from ICLOF So we have institutions who pull even up to 50 reports per week, 100 reports per week. And they're using it on a day-to-day to assess their lending. So it has been approved by CBK. You understand, everybody in this room knows the processes, especially digital lenders. You know what it takes to get through the CBK. So if we got through CBK on this level score, I know you can trust that this solution is robust and is good. Thank you.
Yeah, mine is very, very simple. Let's change narrative. The issue is not access to finance for the smallholder farmer. The issue is access to business opportunities. And I'll give you an example of a simple rice farmer doing 1 acre in an irrigation scheme, yet the government is coming up with a policy that we are going to mechanize irrigation. This farmer has been used to planting his own rice, harvesting his own rice. Then you come up with a mechanization program, fine, it improves his livelihood. So what do you do with this farmer? That's why we need collaboration between development finance and consumer finance. Let's increase the portfolio of the business properties available to this farmer. If this farmer will now not be weeding or planting his crop, what will he be doing? Commercial banks should come up with products, alternative products. Let the farming continue in the irrigation scheme. Let this farmer have his 100 or 1,000 or 2,000 chicken. And let's have the private sector, the technology guys, come up with solutions for, let this farmer not be using firewood. We want the chicken that is being farmed to be utilized as, the manure to be utilized as fuel for the household through biogas. The rice, when harvested through mechanization, the processor will only utilize the grain. Whatever remains should be supplied back to the farmer as input for his chicken. So you create a profile of business opportunities that will make this farmer attractive both to development finance institutions and commercial banks. That is my take.
Thank you. Jackson and Gideon, very well research presentations. We are grateful. Now we have come to the end of our session, and I wish to hand back to Eddie. Thank you.